This podcast serves Middle Tennessee every weekday morning, and it's made possible by member support. Learn how you can make a difference at WPLN.org/support.
This is the Nash Villager Podcast. It's January 8th, 2026, and on this day, in 1790, President George Washington delivered what was then called his first address to Congress. Today we know it as the State of the Union. The Constitution requires some kind of message from the president to the legislature every year, although it doesn't really get specific about what should be covered or even what form it should take. And for a while, the norm wasn't a speech at all. Thomas Jefferson thought the whole speech thing made the president look too much like a king. So he started the custom of just sending a long letter to Congress and letting someone else read it out loud. That was actually the norm for about a century. And the time of year when it would happen also shifted. For a long time, it was usually done in December. But that's all just logistics. The substance of the State of the Union was established the first time Washington stood up to give his version of the address. And the concept hasn't just stayed the same. It's become the norm for governors and even in cities like Nashville for mayors. They all give an annual speech that lays out priorities, announces some of what the executive branch intends to do in the coming year, and attempts to suggest or maybe persuade the legislature to take actions in line with those priorities. Those speeches often kick off a new legislative cycle. They certainly set the tone. Tennessee's legislature is about to get back to business, and the date for Governor Bill Lee's State of the State should be announced soon. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. When I first started doing the news, WPLN was a lot smaller. We didn't have a reporter on the government beat. All of us in our very small newsroom got press passes for the legislature and took turns covering hearings and votes, just according to who was available. And one of the first things I learned was that the first week or two after the legislature is said to be back in session, they aren't really. I mean, not in the way you might think anyway. The new members get sworn in and all, but before they can get down to business, there's time allotted for the practicalities. For one thing, there's usually a certain amount of shuffling around office space. Admins need to assign offices to the new legislators, of course. Leadership roles come with specific office space, so if there's been an adjustment in who is majority leader or whip or whatever, those folks need to move. And that, combined with the ones who retired or lost their reelection campaign, triggers a whole ripple effect of mid-level lawmakers jockeying to grab newly opened spaces, especially if they've been stuck in an office with a cruddy view through the windows or a long walk to the hearing rooms. Everyone also needs to get new passes, the physical badges worn while moving around the State House. That's not just lawmakers, it's lobbyists, reporters, and support staff, too. All kinds of practical stuff has to happen before the hearings can begin. And for 2026, those tasks will begin in earnest next week. But that's not to say nothing of substance has happened yet. In fact, here at WPLN, we've already reported some on bills that have been filed or announced. They may not have been physically present in the halls of the State House since the spring, but legislators tend to spend at least part of that long off-season crafting the bills they hope to push through the legislative process. Generally, they want to go ahead and get them in the hopper as soon as possible so they can just turn their attention to the meetings, debates, and in-person politicking of the General Assembly as soon as the gavel pounds to open this year's initial floor sessions. There's something very important to remember when you hear about those brand new bills, especially at this point when they are fresh new things. In early January, when the very first subcommittee hearings haven't even been scheduled, every bill can look just about as likely to become law as any other bill. But in a matter of weeks, that will change. Some of these measures will just sail through to passage, easy peasy. Some will trigger debates that never seem to end. That's often the case with the big issues of the year. And many bills will have a complete failure to launch. It only takes one lawmaker to file a bill for consideration. That one person has to get at least 66 others to agree in order for the bill to become law. And that's just the figure for the final votes in the House and Senate. Before that, all the relevant subcommittees have to decide there's enough merit to the proposal to send it up to committees, which in turn have to sign off before it is scheduled for a floor vote. There are all kinds of opportunities for a bill to essentially be set off to the side and forgotten. So before you get too excited over the possibility of a change you really like, or too upset over a proposal that you think would be just awful, take a step back to assess how realistic it is. On the General Assembly's website, you can see who submitted the bill. Is that legislator a newbie or someone with a leadership position, like a committee chair? Generally speaking, the people with major positions in their parties file the bills that pretty much everyone in that party has already agreed to support. Those measures tend to make it far. It's more of an uphill climb for a bill introduced by a fresh face. Although some newcomers do turn out to be really good at lobbying more established members to vote their bill through all the processes. The next thing to look at is whether others have signed on to co-sponsor the bill. When there's just one lonely name listed, unless it's a name attached to power, well, chances are slim. To be fair, this is something that could change. Again, if that initial sponsor really works at it, getting the time to talk to folks about their idea and really sell them on it, the bill might gain some co-sponsors as the time goes on. If it's something advocacy groups like, they might send their lobbyists around to make the case for the bill. And those conversations in the halls and private offices can help a bill pick up momentum. As the session gets going, the rest of a bill's page on the General Assembly's website should start to fill out as any kind of actions taken in either the House or Senate are listed with a date. Well, it will fill out if the bill has legs. If not, it'll just sit stagnant. You'll see entries that indicate staff have determined which committee it falls under, and then which subcommittee gets first crack. But if nobody's co-signing, nobody's actively advocating for the bill, it's possible that the measure could just languish, with a note that says it's been assigned to a particular subcommittee, but never anything saying it's been scheduled for even that initial hearing. I absolutely have that old schoolhouse rock song playing in the back of my mind right now, and it really does speak truth when it says, "It's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee." And I guess the quick way of summing all this up is to just say that at the start of the session, before you get it in your mind that you've just heard about a new law, you got to remember that sometimes a bill really is just a bill. In just a few minutes, introducing Nashville to Kurdish culture through pastries, eggs, and very strong coffee. That's coming up after the newscast.
You know how important WPLN News has been to you and your family, and you have seen how high-quality local journalism is necessary to a thriving community. You can ensure that this service stays strong and stays available to all of Nashville and Middle Tennessee. Join the Producers Circle with your gift of $100 or more each month and make the bold statement that you support the mission of a more informed and engaged community. Start your philanthropic journey with Nashville Public Radio today at WPLN.org.
Here's the latest from WPLN News.
It's shaping up to be a nasty flu season with a sharp rise in cases over recent weeks. Experts say they'll continue climbing. Vanderbilt University Medical Center's Dr. Buddy Creech tells WKRN that the strains circulating in the U.S. differ from those targeted by this year's vaccines. But he says the shots still offer the best available protection from illness. It's not too late to get one, since flu season lasts till spring. Tennessee's infant mortality rate has decreased in the last few years, but it remains well above the national average. A new state report analyzed data from 2019 to 2023. It shows 6.5 deaths for every 1,000 live births. The report found a large racial disparity, with black infants more than twice as likely to die compared to white infants. Preterm birth and low birth weight were among the highest risk factors for babies, but nearly a quarter of infant deaths were sleep-related, and most of those were probably preventable. The state's health department emphasizes babies should always sleep on their backs alone without toys or pillows in a crib or bassinet. The report recommends promoting newborn screenings and follow-ups, programs that help pregnant women stop smoking, and education on safe sleeping conditions to expecting parents. A federal investigation into the campaign finances of Congressman Andy Ogles is awaiting clarity in court to move forward. At issue is a claim Ogles made in 2022 that he personally loaned his campaign more than $300,000. Investigations raised questions about whether he had that kind of money himself. That led to amended reports, a Health Ethics Committee investigation, and potential fraud charges. In 2024, federal officials served warrants for Ogle's personal email and cell phone. But in court, Ogle's lawyers have argued the FBI can't look at that evidence because it could include his legislative business. Now News Channel 5 reports the top federal prosecutor for the district, who was just sworn in last month, doesn't appear poised to drop the matter. In a court filing this week, he asked for a ruling on Ogle's request to get back his property. But things may still drag on because the judge in the case just resigned, effective last week. A new state report suggests one major Tennessee program isn't working the way it was intended. In 2019, Tennessee lawmakers narrowly passed a school voucher pilot program. Republican proponents said it would help low-income families take their children out of underperforming public schools and help with the cost of enrolling them in private schools. Unlike Tennessee's more recent universal school vouchers, this program tracks which schools participating children came from and requires them to take the state's annual standardized test. A new report from the state comptroller's office finds that most students in the pilot program are not leaving failing schools. In fact, Chalkbeat reports more students are leaving federally designated reward schools than struggling priority schools. In Davidson County, less than 20% of participants in the program left schools that received a D or F letter grade. Participating students also typically perform worse than their public school peers. The state has touted near unanimous parent satisfaction with the voucher pilot program, but the comptroller's report found that only 15% of families offered feedback last year. The Boring Company says it has applied for 45 permits. With just a few more approvals, the company says it will be ready to start tunneling in Nashville. But which permits do they have, and why does it matter? WPLN's Caroline Eggers reports.
The city of Nashville has issued nearly 24 permits so far, and Tennessee State Transportation Department is now reviewing one big permit application. But some of the key permits associated with major construction projects have been hard to find or don't exist. That includes those related to pollution and protecting waterways. The Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation says the company hasn't applied for any permit, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers hasn't confirmed any applications. So back in November, the Boring Company's president, Steve Davis, spoke on the livestream X. He said the tunnel won't impact water, which suggests they might not need such permits.
People should be very clear that from a water quality, this will have zero effect, zero impact on anything like water quality.
What we know for sure is that the Boring Company has limited government oversight, potentially less than a typical construction project. And if they do skip state or federal environmental permits, those that require notices and hearings, then the public won't have a chance to formally weigh in. Caroline Eggers, WPLN News.
Nashville's Mayor Freddie O'Connell says he is skeptical of the possible vote to change Nashville's charter with regards to the fairgrounds. Currently, the charter says the fairgrounds must be used for racing, but an effort is in place to change that priority to affordable housing. Nashville voters would have to approve that change via referendum. There's been lots of talk about changes at the Speedway. Back in 2021, then Mayor John Cooper struck a deal for renovations at the racetrack. At the time, O'Connell opposed that deal, which is since stalled. But now he tells our Daily Show he's considering proposals for redoing the Speedway and is hesitant over changing priorities.
I'm a little skeptical of a referendum that, would give you clearance to knock down the Expo Center to build affordable housing. I don't think that's what Nashvillians are looking for. Even if it allowed them to clear the Speedway, I think the fairgrounds is a unique part of Nashville. That's something that multiple generations of Nashvillians have enjoyed.
Before a referendum can happen, the group would have to collect signatures from 10% of Davidson County voters. Before they start collecting signatures, the Charter Review Commission will have to approve the effort. Their next meeting is January 22nd. $500,000. That's how much Austin Peay State University is paying as part of a settlement to the professor it just reinstated. Last year, the school fired Associate Professor Darren Michael after he shared an article quoting Charlie Kirk on gun violence in the wake of Kirk's death. That post drew the ire of Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn, who tagged the school online. APSU has since walked back firing Michael and returned him to the classroom. In addition to the $500,000 payment, WKRN reports the school has agreed to cover the professor's therapy bill. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. Nashville's food scene has blossomed in recent years, with new restaurants popping up all the time. Antioch's Tash Tea celebrated its first anniversary this year. WPLN's Rose Gilbert sat down with the owner to learn more about the story he's telling through his restaurant.
Tash Tea isn't your typical Nashville brunch spot. They do serve staples like avocado toast, but their specialty is a traditional family-style Kurdish breakfast.
How's it going?
Good, how are you doing? And when I arrived to meet co-owner Ilyas Bakla, that's exactly what's waiting for me. A full spread with fresh bread, tahini and grape molasses, olives, cucumber, eggs, flaky pastries filled with tomatoes, spinach, and cheese. And of course, strong, hot tea. Nashville is home to the largest Kurdish community in America and to several Kurdish eateries. In fact, before opening Tash Tea, Bakla's brother worked at the restaurant Edessa, which made the coveted New York Times Best Of list. Bakla says their focus on breakfast is what sets them apart.
We really enjoy taking your time, having your breakfast, drinking your tea or coffee, and like a slow-paced breakfast. And that's what we've been doing. People don't come here for a rushed breakfast. People come here on their off day or, early in the morning that they want, come sit down and enjoy and relax.
Bakla didn't originally set out to open his own restaurant. He studied linguistics, first in Turkey and then in Poland and America. His goal was to become an academic, someone who could represent Kurdish history and culture to the international community, a history and culture that has often been repressed.
For Kurdish people, that we don't have a lot of people who tells our stories. So I wanted to do that, but I'm doing this here where actually I think I'm doing it in a different way.
Now his restaurant tells the story, from the food to the music to the paintings of famous Kurdish vistas hanging on the walls. Customers even have the option of enjoying their meal at a low table, sitting on embroidered cushions, as is more traditional. And Bakla says he can reach more people at his restaurant than he ever would from the ivory tower of academia.
When you're in the restaurants, we can everywhere. It's food. People come to food. So, and then you can tell stories. It's, music is a story. The setup is a story. The food is a story. So
Bakla brings in his own collection of books on Kurdish art and history for customers to look through. The restaurant has hosted classes of students from MTSU, and they've even been featured in an exhibit at the First Art Museum about the close historical ties between Venice and the Ottoman Empire.
My name is Ilyas Bakla.
In a short video displayed at the museum, Bakla and a local Italian chef lay out some of the similarities between their two cuisines. Recipes and spices shared between what were once two powerful trading partners. Bakla says he never expected his work to be in a museum, much less as a restaurateur. And he's still looking for new ways to keep telling his story. Rose Gilbert, WPLN News.
Thanks for listening to the Nashvillager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.